What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and welcome to another episode of the Counting Pixelated Sheep podcast. You'll have to excuse the microphone. Like I said before, my headset is broken. I believe I said that. Yeah, I did say that in the last Tomb Raider Let's Play. So I'm using these headphones, and I'm using this microphone here. So if you hear it like brush up against stuff, that's that. Anyways, I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime and co-host for this podcast, Sirjohnmac I.
What's up?
What the hell?
What?
And today we have 4 new articles for you, the order of which will be as follows. Former NASA engineer builds hyper-realistic control panel for Kerbal space program. Pokemon Gens 2 and 3 likely to release on Pokemon Go by the end of 2017. Respawn Entertainment responds proactively to Titanfall 2 beta feedback, that's a tongue twister, and Owlboy comes out of a 9-year development limbo to become a promising retro title. So with that being said, let's dive straight into the first article, which was the former NASA engineer created a Kerbal space program control panel, which you'll be seeing the picture above. That's the actual thing. Yeah, actually you can read the Kerbal space program if you... Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I do have a second monitor now. I bought it off John for like $11 because he didn't have change for 20 for 10, so... So, yeah, you can see this is going to be a lot easier now because I'm not going to have to tab it in and out. I have like all the articles in this monitor, so it's going to be a lot nicer. Yeah, so you can see like the monitor. This guy went all out. Like, there's not much to say about this story. It was just sort of like a, look at this cool shit. But like, yeah, this guy literally created a hyper-realistic control panel to like land a rocket. That's insane. You got anything else? Do you have anything to say about this, John? Because you're the one who actually plays Kerbal Space Program. I've just experienced it through you. Sorry, I'm shaking the table.
I would be really curious to actually see this thing in action.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it looks awesome. I can just imagine actually being in the cockpit view of some shuttle and using this thing.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'll like get out a joystick just to play with that for a bit, and this and this is just like taking that to $11.
It's funny because I couldn't even hear what you said shut up for, but I can just imagine your mom staring at you like, oh my god. Great. I think this is really cool in regards to, in recent years, it seems like the, crazy peripherals have gone by the wayside for more in favor of like gamepads, So I think this is pretty cool to see a like super hyper realistic version of it and like what else they could possibly use it for, because this could potentially become a training exercise for NASA hopefuls or just any space program in general, training. I mean, it's really easy to buy. Kerbal Space Program is like, what, 20 some odd bucks on sale right now in Steam, so what is it normally, like $40?
I think it goes up to 40 usually.
Yeah, but still, like for space program, if it's realistic enough, it could be actually worth it to train people with. I mean, like Arma, don't they actually use that for some sort of? Doesn't some military force use Arma as a training game?
I think Arma actually initially did start as a military simulator and kind of from there went to becoming an actual retail product.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I probably will like a caption somewhere being like, it's this to that or that to that. No.
It was something like that, like Arma or America's Army. No, that's just a recruiting tool, never mind.
Low blow.
Yeah. Sorry to the America's Army fans out there.
Yeah, unfortunately that's all I really have to say about it. Is, like I said before, it was just really, really freaking cool. I know KSP is like very, very realistic already with like its orbital mechanics, but this sort of brings it to an entirely new level. And I remember when I told John about this, he was like, oh yeah, and there's mods to make like this and that more realistic, and it was like, wow, I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised.
Yeah, you can really pump up the realism in that game if you know the right mods.
Yeah, and like we already said, the more realistic, the more useful it can be depending on the application. I Well, I guess, like I was gonna say, I was gonna make a joke about the like Euro Truck Simulator, but I guess if you get realistic enough mods, that could become a thing.
Definitely.
Anyways, do you have anything else to say about this, or do you want to move on to the next article?
I think we can move on.
Yeah, there's not much to say about it. The next article is the Pokemon Go. So, Niantic has more or less hinted that they want to be releasing more generations soon, but first they want to work on they want to fix the GPS, and they want to work on player versus player stuff other than just like the gyms, trading and whatnot. But after that, they want to start working on putting the Johto and the Hoenn generations into the game. Personally, I think that's really cool. Granted, my knowledge of Pokemon goes all the way up to 5 or 6, whatever X and Y were. Or not X and Y. X and Y is the first gen that I didn't play. It was Black and White 2. So I think that was like 5.5 or 6.5, something like that. But yeah, I think it would be pretty cool to add more Pokemon. I think waiting a little while to add like the Johto ones, because I'd imagine they'd add like Johto and then wait a little while and add Hoenn, because adding 2 whole generations of Pokemon would turn a lot of people off, I think, because that's like doubling it twice. Adding like 300 new Pokemon into a game that had like 151 to start. Well, I don't think the legendaries are in it yet, so there's still like 140 something available right now, right?
Shouldn't ask me about that.
Yeah, right now it said Niantic's initial plans for the future of the app include adding features like trading Pokemon between players and more Pokemon from newer generations. By the end of 2017, it wants to add Johto and Hoenn. Personally, I think this is a good idea. Like, over time, it can't just stay as like the original generation of Pokemon, otherwise it's already dead. It's like, why bother updating it at all? But if they're going to continue it with the longevity of like Pokemon generations in general, like I remember, God, it must have been almost a year ago now, like one of the first podcasts we talked about Pokemon Go, whenever it was like early development, they were talking about the possibility of being able to trade from the like phone to like DS or whatever platform it's on in the future, making Pokemon Go actually useful in terms of like the actual Pokemon players. Not just like the mobile players and then like the handheld console, but like the root, or what do you call it, the base games. I could see the crowd for Pokemon Go at least would definitely shrink over time, because less people would be like interested in gathering, like what the hell's a Mudkip, But I think it would also grow Pokemon in general's fan base. Wouldn't be half as large as like Pokemon Go is right now, but or maybe it will be, I don't know. But my guess is that it would lessen Pokemon Go's fan base, but increase Pokemon's fan base overall, because more people would be playing the games because they got introduced from Pokemon Go. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, John?
I remember reading recently that Pokemon Go has had a bit of a user drop-off.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy to attribute that to how monotonous it can get. Like, if in certain areas you will just find the same Pidgey, Rattata, Weedle, Caterpie, whatever.
Yeah.
As well as frankly, the lack of features. Like, the only way to fight another Pokemon is at a gym. So, there's only so much you can do, no trading.
Last I heard, the drop-off was around like 10 million players. Because they were at like, I don't remember the exact number, I think it was like 25 million, it might have been more than that, and it dropped down to like 15 mil, and it was steadily declining from there. It's basically like that controversy of like taking away the tracking. And then like, I think the only way they can keep it alive and potentially revitalize it is to add more features. Pokemon Go, that is, not Pokemon in general. That much hasn't died now, it's not going to.
Yeah, I feel like Pokemon definitely has that staying power, just not quite Pokemon Go yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like it definitely could.
Yeah, I think, like you said, they need to add just more. They need to make it more concrete, because right now it's like one of those fads that becomes super popular and then just goes away like that. Like, hell, I'm trying to think of one now, like the Harlem Shake. Remember that a couple of years ago? No one does it anymore. Flash mobs.
Gangnam Style.
Freaking, yep. Freaking 2012 all up in here. Yeah, it's like, right now I think it's that fad, but if they come out with something soon, I think like they really need to fix the tracking. That's something that people are all up in arms about still. So that will sort of quell the anger for that, and then even hopefully bring a lot of people back. Because it is a good game, it's just, like you said, monotonous.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of becomes, if you're not near a gym, then it just kind of becomes a collecting thing, which, I mean, is the main drive behind Pokemon, but
yeah,
it's like there's nothing really I can do with all that I've collected. Like, I might as well be collecting rocks.
At least if you find a shiny rock, you can sell it for real life money.
Yeah, Pokemon still doesn't have shinies yet. Pokemon Go still doesn't have shinies.
As far as we know, those things were super rare. You ever see the black Charmander?
No, I don't think so.
Or it might have been a blue. I think it was blue, but it looks black. That's from my memory. But like, it was crazy to get. Like, you had to freaking restart the game 1,000,001 times. This is Gen 1. You had to like restart the game like 1,000,001 times in like Fire Red.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a 1 in 16,000 chance, and you had to choose Charmander obviously every single time. So it was just like, what the hell?
Restarting the game 1,000,001 times? Oh, I play Pokemon Go. I'm quite familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm like just looking at my. I'm back up at college. If you couldn't tell, it's a much larger room, so it's a lot less likely that you hear the roommate American Sauce, I believe, was his old name. Trying to embarrass him, it's not working. He's oblivious. But yeah, like up at my college, it's like sort of like a town. Like the whole town revolves around the college. So there's like Pokestops every 5 feet. Like there's a cemetery like nearby, and the cemetery is not only a gym but has like 20 different Pokestops for a bunch of different monuments. You know, for something like this, where like a lot of these buildings for the college and for, you know, businesses and whatnot are Pokestops, it can be a really fun game to play. But like, you know, back home there's one every couple miles. That's exaggerating, but it's like 1 or 2 every like half mile. At least where I was. I know where John is. It's completely barren.
Oh yeah.
So it can be much less interesting to play at that point. You know, I can imagine people in like New York City are probably, well, they might be bored if they already caught everything. At that point, it's sort of like a, let's see how far we can train everything. I don't know, I guess the point of trying to drive home is that they need to do something to get people interested again, or keep the people who are still interested currently continually interested, and adding new generations would not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Have anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's move on to the third article, which is the Titanfall 2 thing. This one was very interesting to me, because normally when you hear like a beta, you don't usually hear the dev being so proactive with the input. Like, a lot of people are complaining that like the run speed was too slow, the Titan meter was going up too slow, and instead of like a big, you know, run and shoot kind of game, it was more like strategic, which is apparently what the devs wanted, but the players were complaining a lot. Now, they didn't completely change it back to the style of Titanfall 2, or, wow, Titanfall, this is Titanfall 2, Titanfall, but they sort of found a happy medium, and I found this very interesting, because it's like, the first thing that pops in my head is basically the concept of give someone an inch and they want a mile. It's like, if you give the players too much right off, if you show yourself too willing to change your vision, then the people are gonna like stomp all over that and be like, no, we want it our way. And then people are stupid, they're going to create a game that they're going to get sick of in 2 weeks.
It's going to be Call of Duty.
Yeah, basically. But it was very interesting and somewhat, I don't know, mentionable to say that the devs were like actually listening and like proving that they were listening. I guess that's something that, you know, you don't see too often nowadays, because you get like Niantic, you know, for one, it's like for weeks they went without communication. You know, Blizzard, especially with World of Warcraft, up through Warlords of Draenor, wasn't communicating very much, and that creates a lot of hate in the community, and that gives the devs even less reason to communicate.
Yeah.
But this was something different altogether. It's kind of funny because I honestly didn't know that they were making a Titanfall 2 until this point. Like, I remember Titanfall was really popular, and then it just sort of like fell off the radar. I don't know. Did you ever play Titanfall, John?
I played a little bit of the Titanfall. They had, I think, like a free weekend or something like that. Or maybe I just used the, like, I think it's like 2 hours free on Origin. You can play a game before committing to it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was quite fun, but it was already several months, maybe a year after release, and it was barren.
Yeah.
Like, and it's such a like cool concept for a game, and to see that happen is really kind of sad, and I hope it doesn't happen to the second one.
Yeah. Well, it looks like they're taking it a bit more seriously, especially with the player feedback. Like, they don't want to make the same mistakes with the first one, but they're willing to listen to a degree. Now, I do recall hearing that this past weekend, this is being recorded on Sunday, so I think it's like just finishing today or maybe tomorrow, that they were having another beta with like the new changes that they said they were going to implement, and this is all before the game comes out in, I believe, October or maybe late September. I don't remember exactly when. It probably says, but I can't see it when I'm scrolling around like a maniac trying to find it. But I haven't heard anything from like the feedback of that beta yet, or if it was there, or maybe it's like, you know, next weekend for all I know. Excuse me. But I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here, because I think the first beta they were sort of caught off guard with a lot of the complaints, whereas the players were caught off guard with a lot of the changes. You know, they weren't expecting a more strategic game, a more drawn-out game, instead of like these quick little, basically Overwatch or COD matches. But it'll be interesting to see how far they're willing to budge for the second beta test, because then it's like there's, at that point I feel like they're probably intending to hone everything and refine it, whereas I'm sure the players who were vocal the first time will want it to be completely overhauled, and I doubt that's going to happen. I'd hope that that's not going to happen. For the sole purpose of what they want is basically the game that failed the first time. It sort of reminds me of like the people who played Evolve after it was like barren, and then they complained about how Evolve is changing. And a lot of them are like, you know, I'm never going to touch this game again, you know, the newer game. Whereas it's like, well, you sacrifice these really, really dedicated players for a much larger fan base, and that, like, you know, equally as dedicated, but to a different game, or at least a different style of game. It's like which is which, you know, pick your poison kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think at that point you start to gain a more healthy fan base, because that's what they had before, like Evolve specifically had before, was more fanatic than anything else. Like the people who actually stuck around through the wasteland were complete fanatics, like could do no wrong. Whereas I feel like now it's more of a community that can call out the game and give actual feedback instead of saying like, no, everything's perfect. Yeah. Don't want that much of a challenge. Just go play like any MMO from South Korea.
Yeah. I'll say it's nice to see a company using a beta actually as a beta test, and not just like, hey, this is what we're going to have in place of a demo. Although, I mean, it's still functionally like that.
Yeah.
And I will mention that, take this how you will, there is no PC beta. It's only Xbox One and PS4.
I think that's been relatively constant, even from the first Titanfall, where like they were focused on console, and then did Titanfall 1 even come to PC?
Oh yeah, it was on PC. I don't know if it was like a delayed release or simultaneous, but I believe it was just like a console port, and I remember it running decently well. This was on my laptop when I played that, and it was all right.
Yeah, but I think that's obvious enough that this is definitely a console game. That's, console comes first.
Yeah.
Although I don't give a shit about Titanfall. At least playing it this much is very interesting, just to, like, from a discussional direction. But you okay? I don't know what happened, but there was a loud noise. I still prefer the nephew's loud noises. What was I saying? Right, I would hope that more games go the direction of like Overwatch, where it's developed separately for console and PC, because it shows respect to both platforms, I feel like one too many devs nowadays will show a bit too much respect to the console and be like, well, then we're just going to port it over to PC. It's the same thing, right? It's like, yeah, sure. I don't know. I pretty much said anything unless you have more to say.
Nah.
Okay, I will get on to the last article, which is Owlboy. This one I have never even heard of, but it was very interesting, at least the pixel art was from the picture. And basically this is a game that was originally announced to be made, or like started in development in 2007, that basically went through developmental hell. Early on, I believe around like 2009, one of the lead devs left the studio. It's a really long article, I'm not going to scroll through everything, but I'll have stuff above for you to reference. But one of the lead devs left, and that took a huge hit. On top of that, the studio was working on other games, so it's like, this just wasn't at the forefront of their problem list. It's not like this was the only thing that they were working on. And it took like a year or two for them to get like 2 new guys to like focus on Owlboy, and then from there it's just been slow. On top of like, developing the, I guess, the creative director of the game, or possibly the CEO of whatever studio this is. I can't find it right now, but basically whoever did the art for the game, they did it pixel by pixel with a very limited color palette, which I have to say, like, from the trailer and all the pictures and a few GIFs that are in the article, it's like, holy hell, this is like some of the best pixel art I've ever seen. Like, I do like the retro-inspired games. I usually just dislike that they come with a stupid amount of difficulty. Like, there's definitely a difference between stupidly hard and a fair challenge. Shovel Knight's my favorite example of that. Shovel Knight's a piece of shit, as far as I'm concerned. It took way too long to beat it. I did actually beat it. It was not fun, though. I did not have fun. Like, the entire time I was like, fuck this game, fuck everything about this game, fuck the hype around this game, like, it was way too challenging, and I feel like the one way they could have made it fair is put checkpoints at the beginning of every room, or at least every other room, instead of like, every 3 or 4 rooms, because to put it into perspective, towards the end of the game, you had like 5 rooms in between checkpoints, and you'd basically die on like the 4th or maybe the final room before the next checkpoint, go all the way back, and it's like, to get to that point, you had to do everything perfect. Like, there was no mistakes allowed whatsoever. And it's like, I know I'm not that good at games, but that one is like, I'm not that bad either. It's like, I'm actually pretty decent at platformers. I'm average, is fair enough to say. And Shovel Knight was way too difficult. The one good thing about like Shovel Knight, for example, was the boss fights. That was the one thing that was interesting, but getting to them was not worth the stress. And I have no idea what this game, I believe it looks like a platformer, or like an adventure platformer, judging from the trailer, which I'll probably show like a clip or 2 up above. I don't want to show the whole thing. That'd just be wrong, but it looks pretty damn good. I'm hoping it doesn't have that stupid amount of, like, it's retro. Everything retro was hard. It's like, not everything. Not anything that was good was hard. Freaking, I don't even remember the name of the game, but there was like that one that was Infamous Contra, is that? That was like infamous for being really freaking hard.
I don't know about Contra. I know Ninja Gaiden was
Yes, I think that's what I'm
known for it.
I don't know where Contra came from.
Mm.
It's just like the first 8-bit or whatever game, pixelated game that I could think about.
Mm.
But yeah, it looks really damn good. Basically, it's very different from normal games that are put in through like developmental limbo, where like, you know, they go through hell and back, like all these different issues over years and years and years, and they come out with this like half-baked product. But Owlboy, at least from the looks of it, can't say anything thus far because it's not actually out, but from the looks of it, it looks decent enough. It looks solid enough, you know, it looks complete. Whereas usually you can catch wind of when this sort of stuff is not finished. I think it was like the Mighty Number 9 that was like infamous for being, like, you could tell just from the looks of it. It's like, what do you have? Well, here's concept art. It's like, yeah, you had that like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where's the stuff? And they didn't have any. Whereas this, they have like gameplay. In the trailer, they have a lot of art and whatnot, and I believe, yeah, the guy said basically the only thing they really wanted with pixels was, like, they didn't want to do a lot of layering and a lot of fancy work like that. He wanted it to be pixel by pixel art, and the only thing that they allowed in terms of movement for the pixels was rotations, which is extremely complex and fascinating that he managed to do that. Like, I'll probably post the GIF up above if I can figure out how to do that with the video editor. Like showing, you know, it's just like a scene of like a little house on a floating island with clouds going by, and it's like, that's pixel by pixel?
Yeah.
I don't know, what are your thoughts on this, John?
I think it looks like a really cool game for what it is. Like, it is a platform adventure, like you said. It looks like it's going to be a Metroidvania style, like in that kind of vein.
Kind of like Ori and the Blind Forest. Did you play
Yeah. I didn't, but I saw quite a bit of gameplay of it.
I did enjoy Ori and the Blind Forest. That was a good game of backtracking, but that was a good example of a game that was challenging but not stupidly difficult.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I remember when it first came out, it was like, this is so difficult. I played it, and it was like, this is hard, but it's fair.
Yeah, and I feel like the Metroidvania would also make a lot of sense to get the most out of the pixel art if you're seeing it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Going back to the same locations. And it definitely does look, I mean, you said it, it looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's just from the screenshots, let alone the moving images. It's like, holy hell. Like, I do enjoy pixel art. If it's done right, and this is done so beyond right, it's incredible. Like, they got like freaking like cherry blossom looking trees with pixels. Like, how do you even? I don't know. I put it on my wish list, but I just more or less want to see like how it is when it actually comes out, because if it is supposed to be really good, which I'm hoping it is because it looks incredible, then I'll probably try and get it if it comes out for a reasonable price. It's like $50, and maybe not, but then again, if it goes on sale, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. The aesthetic, like, it reminds me a lot of Miyazaki. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I guess I could definitely see that connection. I didn't really think of that, but yeah, I guess kind of. It's not like, you know, don't take that too literally. It's not like it's not like carbon copy of Spirited Away or something. But
yeah,
it's definitely good.
Yeah, that's just what comes to mind for me.
It's, I guess the best way to describe it in terms of like comparing it to Miyazaki is it feels very open and vast while being very homey. If you get what I'm saying at all. I guess one little tidbit of interesting information that I kind of forgot to mention before is that they were using the XNA engine for the original game, and then like they don't use that engine anymore because that was for the Xbox 360, and does anyone even make games for the 360 anymore?
Okay. I don't know.
I'd be surprised if they were. But basically, because it was the XNA, they could like basically import it to the newer engines without having to change a whole lot. Like, I believe one of the engines that they're using is FXNA, so it's like a newer version of that or whatever. So it's possible, and what they said is now they're in the final stages. I forget when they said it was supposed to come out. I believe they said by the end of 2016. I think they even said fall, so like before, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas time ish. I would certainly like to see it come out soonish.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I have. Do you have anything else to add?
It definitely doesn't feel like the last time we're going to be talking about this game.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoy bringing up games again, at least thus far, because we haven't had to go back to any game and be like, this one sucked ass.
Yeah.
You know, like Pokemon Go has had it. Pokemon Go is really the only game that we've talked about consistently, I think.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about it, I think, 3 times, like, release, middle, like, close to release, and then, like, early development or announcement. But, you know, despite its issues, it is a good game, or at least a good concept, so that, so far, a good track record for games that we've repeatedly talked about on the podcast, although I certainly wouldn't omit, you know, if a game that we talked about on the podcast, like, shit the bucket,
Yeah.
shit the bed, whatever the hell the, fucking kicked the puppy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
If we were like,
thinking of evil things to do.
yeah, if we were like really hyped for Mighty Number 9, and that came out and it was not as expected,
Oh yeah.
and we just had to have a podcast like, well,
You done fucked up.
yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't be like opposed to doing, like, you know, say Owlboy does suck. I would, you know, I wouldn't completely omit it just because it'd be like we look stupid. It's like, not really. I don't like, we give our opinions about it, but we're open enough to the point where it's not, we're not saying like it will be good. It's like it looks really good, and at the very,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's fair enough to say, and that will remain true regardless of how good the game actually is that it looks freaking incredible. At least what we've been given so far. Got anything else, or should I attempt the outro?
I think that's about it.
So, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Be sure to check out my partner in crime, Sirjohnmac's channel. He posts something every now and then. It's usually pretty entertaining, whatever it is. Got anything else you'd like to say, John?
Nope.
Well, that's all the time we've got for today, so until next time, don't die.